I mean, okay. Really quick, can you guys hear me? Okay. Thumbs up. Okay. Yeah, my webcam right
Yeah,
now
you're
is
good.
all right. My webcam right now is sitting on top of an empty mixed nuts container and a little plastic thing because I 10 minutes before I figured let me see if my camera works. I realized I didn't have Zoom downloaded. I realized my camera was too far away, couldn't hear me, and I was freaking out. So awesome, we got this going. Hi everyone, my name is Dan. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is January 5th, 2011. My sponsor is Marty W. My home group is the Morning Miracles group. We meet at the clubhouse in Freehold, New Jersey, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. with our main speaker meeting being Saturday. That was my home group since I came in. I'd switched a little bit. I moved a little bit in sobriety, but I'm back now because I don't know. It's nice. I know everyone there. I'm also currently serving as the treasurer for Ninja. We do exist. I exist. Hello. We don't have a conference yet. We're 3 years in the making. I don't know. We're trying. I guess, but a little bit about what it was like. I learned once I came into AA that I'd always had those kind of isms, the kind of I, self, and me. My perspective was focused primarily on me and what I wanted and how I could get that. I thought that was normal growing up. Also, I'll share this now. When I came into meetings, I would introduce myself as, hi, my name is Dan. I'm an alcoholic and a self-proclaimed genius, right? And I said it half jokingly because I knew you were going to laugh and you were going to clap. But also part of me was serious about that. And I wanted you to agree with me, like, yeah, I'm a pretty smart guy. Thank you for acknowledging that. Because that was a message I got all through childhood. Like I was in those special classes because like, I'm a smart guy. And so growing up, my thought was that, knowledge is power. If I know enough, I can figure out anything. I wasn't very social growing up. I kept to myself mostly. I did well in school, did well in sports, didn't do well with people. I was scared of people. I didn't know how to present myself in such a way that you would like me. So I just kind of played, background a whole lot, and that worked out for me. And that was my life. Like I said, I think I did all right. Drinking didn't really play a part in most of my childhood. Just because it was going to interfere with track, and track is big for me, and I just wasn't interested until I was. I remember the first time I got drunk, I was with 3 friends of mine in my parents' basement. We were taking shots of Bacardi. It was my first time drinking, so none of us really knew what we were doing. But I just remember playing Super Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube battle mode. Rounds lasted like 3 minutes. And pretty much after every round, if you didn't win, you took a shot. One kid, it was his game, so he was winning every round. And pretty much every couple of minutes, it was 3 of us taking a shot of Bacardi. And I remember a couple minutes into that, I think a lot. I talk pretty fast because I think really fast and I try and get everything out. And that's how I've always been. I'm always thinking. I'm always thinking ahead. I'm always thinking possibility, whatever. And I'm always thinking, what are you thinking? What am I thinking you're thinking? How do I alter what you're thinking? And just a lot of noise all the time up there. And I remember a couple of minutes into this first drinking session, that all kind of went away. And I was able to just sit there with my friends in my parents' basement and laugh and be stupid and have fun. And like, I didn't know that was available to me. I didn't know I could get there. I didn't know I could feel like that. And it's like, holy crap, like what have I been missing out on? Like, this is awesome. This is an awesome tool I've just discovered to add to my, whatever I've gone on. Because like I said, I always did well in school, always did well in sports. It was a social part that I wasn't sure of. I was, not whatever at. But now that I had this thing, I was like, holy crap, like maybe I can grow here too. And then a couple minutes, that lasted maybe 15 minutes, and then all of us threw up. We're all thrown up in my parents' basement. We played it off like we got bad fast food, and that was fine. And I remember thinking, like, that was fun, but like, I don't really like where that went. I went to, before college, I went to a house party, but I wasn't comfortable losing control like that in front of people I didn't know that well. So, I had maybe a beer or two, and then I left, and that was it. until college. And then I go to college and I've seen the movies. So I know what this is, right? I've seen American Pie. I've seen Animal House. I know what this is. I know what I want this to be. This is what I'm going to make it. And so, I started going out, to, on the Friday nights, Saturday nights to frat parties, and I found out pretty quickly that the more I drink, the louder I am, the more people talk to me and pay attention to me. And I love that attention, and, a few weeks in, I'd go to a frat party and people start yelling my name. And I loved that. And I loved what was happening freshman year. And freshman year, for a while, I considered the greatest year of my life. After my first semester, I was inducted to the National Honor Society. My second semester, I ran my first half marathon. But most importantly, I had a social life. People in my mind, and people knew who I was. People were excited to see me, and I love that. And so in my mind, all of a sudden, I have an answer. I have a solution because everything else was figured out. It was just add alcohol, and I got it made. And sophomore year I turned 21, and all of a sudden, I start like being more intentional because now I'm 21, and now these are the big leagues. I'm in college. I'm just starting out. I gotta up my game, right? And it was funny because when I came to AA the first time, I read the first step and it said, we're powerless over alcohol, and our lives were unmanageable. And I laughed. I'm like, I wasn't powerless over alcohol. I'd hear people talking, I'm like, man, that's kind of out of control. You were powerless. I was very intentional with my drinking, because I had equations and I had Excel spreadsheets, and I was very like, I know what I'm doing. And that's not an exaggeration. I'd go and I'd have a routine. I'd go to a liquor store because I'm a smart guy, right? I go to a liquor store and I'd start looking like, how many ounces are in this bottle or can? Great. What's the ABV, the alcohol by volume percentage, the number, percentage of the drink that's actual alcohol? Great. Multiply the two numbers and get the number of ounces of alcohol that are in this bottle or can. Great. What's the price? Great. Divide the two, get the dollar per ounce of alcohol that I'm purchasing for. Higher ratios are better buys, right? Because I got to conserve money here. Great. And then over the course of a couple of years, right? All of a sudden I'm just drinking and drinking and drinking. And for a while, it's because it's social. It's because I want to be able to drink everyone on the table at a party. And then I start getting sloppy at parties. And all of a sudden, I don't like people seeing that side of me. That's not the image I want to portray. So I'd go into what I called isolation training, where I would just go home and drink and try and increase my tolerance so that when I went back out to drink, I would be able to drink better in public. That didn't work, right? Because the goal was always drink more, drink more, drink more. But it was weird because and that's why I introduced the equation. So I could be very practical and scientific about this thing. So I could be intentional about my drinking, and I started going through all the equations. And then I started going through, how many hours am I going to drink today, right? When do I want to start? When do I want to pass out by? Because eventually that's what it came down to. I couldn't fall asleep. I needed to pass out. How many hours is that? Great. How much alcohol do I have? Great. Divide the two, get the rate of, ounce per hour or bottle per hour. Great. But I'm a runner. And so you go out hard, you maintain, you have a kick. And that's how I drank. I drank a little bit and I, kind of maintain that. And then I'd finish off until I passed out. Right? During this period of time, I lose my academic scholarship. I flunk a course because I stopped showing up there. I gained about 30 pounds and I wasn't exercising. So it was all from just takeout, not even takeout. I wasn't even, because I was already drunk. So it was delivery, just pizzas delivered to my house. I'd wake up and actually I'd wake up to, 2 empty pizza boxes being like, how did this happen? And I remember like, I ordered delivery last night, so I put on 30 pounds. I didn't have a social life anymore in the end, because why would I? I didn't like people seeing me that way. And I don't know if I want to say this. It's going on YouTube. Never mind. But I was a very, very sloppy drunk. Had a lot of, did some damage. And I was also a binge drinker. So I'd go on anywhere from like 2 to 5 day binges. And I sometimes lose track of time, lose track of day, lose track of what was happening. Then I take maybe a day or two off from drinking to clean myself up and just clean around the damage I'd caused. Maybe I'd start up running again. Maybe I'd go to the gym, maybe I'd go to class. I'd start my life back up again. And then I'd be like, okay, things are doing okay now. Let me add alcohol back into the mix. That's the entire point of everything, right? I already got everything else figured out. I just need to add the alcohol and figure out how to make that work. And it would for a little while. I'd be okay, and then I'd drink a little bit more, and I'd be okay, and I'd drink a little bit more, and it'd be like kind of okay. But every time it'd end in a binge. I go back to it, and I have to stop and clean up again and redo it. And like I said, over the course of time, I mean, I pretty much stopped communicating with people. I know, I'd stopped, I'd have days where I wouldn't have class, or I'd just be back in the apartment drinking. My roommates would get home at like, 11 or noon, and they'd look at me, and I'd just be drunk on the computer watching movies, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" And in my mind, like, the question didn't make sense to me. Like, what do you mean, what am I doing? We're in college, guy. This is what we're doing right now. We're drinking, we're having fun. I wasn't drinking. I was sitting there watching movies over and over and over on TV. I don't know if you guys remember in 2006, number 12 Rutgers beat number 3 Louisville in football. I was there at the game. I watched that game back to back to back to back because like that, I wanted to relive the joy of that night and the amazingness of that night. And that's what I would do. Alcohol let me go there, put me there. I do end up graduating. I moved back home. And I figured, all right, college is over. I'm going to get a life now. I'm going to start doing things. So I submit one job application to Toys R Us. They didn't call me back, so that maybe a job's not really on the table right now. So let me go back into shape. So I started going on like a little route that I have planned around the neighborhood. And I realized that when I'm a mile and a half out, if I just cross the street, there's a liquor store there. I didn't have a car at the time, but I can't run with alcohol. So what I do is I get a backpack, run a mile and a half out, go buy a case, unpack it into my backpack. Now I have a weighted pack. And now I just kind of walk back, and that's exercise also. And now I can get drunk and work out. And that obviously starts the whole, drinking equations. What's the best bang for my buck? I go from beer to ice beer to 40s to I was drinking juice for a while. If you don't know what juice is, it's like a weaker version of Four Loko. Then I started drinking Four Lokos because those numbers worked out great. I actually stopped drinking Four Lokos because there's too much sugar in them, and I was not comfortable with that. Then I started going to whiskey because that's a man's drink, whiskey. And I finished off. The last thing was wine. My last binge happened. Actually, no, let me back up a little bit. I remember the summer before I stopped drinking. Right. I'd wake up on the couch downstairs, and I have a half empty handle of vodka on the table next to me. And both my parents are gone. I mean, they both woke up, went downstairs, got ready for work, went downstairs, had breakfast, left the house, saw me there, passed out on the couch with the whiskey there. My mom comes from an alcoholic family. She grew up in an alcoholic household. But in my mind, it's like, well, there's a little bit of shame attached to that. But at the time, it's like, well, what are you gonna do, right? But I'd wake up in the morning, and I just feel like garbage. I'd get very like melodramatic, like what am I doing with my life? Where my friends are getting jobs, getting girlfriends, houses, they're doing things, and I'm sitting here getting drunk. Like, oh my god, like what am I doing? I'm so much wasted potential. Woe is me, right? And I'd be like so over dramatic about it, and that would be rough for a while. And I remember wanting to cry because of how sad that was, but also kind of just not really caring that my life looked that sad. And then to feel better, I can just drink. And then that's not a problem anymore because now I'm drunk, and that's great. Right. And my idea of fun at the end of my drinking was I was literally watching the same 3 movies over and over and over and over again. I can pretty much quote them. I can't anymore, I don't think. I was watching Tombstone, Without Limits, which is a story of Steve Prefontaine, and Toy Story 3. Because Toy Story 3, that scene where they're all holding on to each other, and they're like, I always cried at that scene. I like crying when I was drunk because I could feel something. But that's what I would do. That was my idea of fun. I'd go into chat rooms, which I still had in like 2010. I go into chat rooms, so now I'm social and drinking. So now that's not right. But I just remember just feeling empty, just not caring about anything. I remember not being suicidal, but not really caring if I happened to fall in the street and get hit by a car and die, right? I was very like, I just, this is too much energy to continue. I just want to stop. If I woke up and didn't wake up, I went to sleep and didn't wake up, like that would have been okay. I think I'm okay with that, right? And then finally, my last binge started Christmas Day 2010. Christmas we always have a Christmas Eve party every year, family Christmas Eve party. 2009, I don't remember what happened. I know I drank a lot and I woke up with a different pair of pants on. They were backwards. And this is a family Christmas Eve party. These are people I've known my entire life. And that's whatever. 2010 Christmas Eve party, I drank beautifully. I was very conversational. I visited AA by this point, but I'm very conversational. I don't have a problem, blah, 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 I'm fine. By that point I had gone to AA for a little bit because, pressure from outside and like, I'm going to go to AA and blah, blah. I'm not an alcoholic, but just be very responsible. I'm going to AA. I read all the steps. I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's dumb. I have no idea what that has to do with anything. Then I started drinking, going to AA meetings, and I stopped going to AA meetings. And, my last binge, like I said, started Christmas Day, 2010. I drank all the alcohol I hadn't drank the night before. And that went to January 4th. I was drinking, like a box wine at the time, Franzia box wine at the time. I'd go get 2 boxes, go home, just watch movies, get drunk. On January 4th, my parents walked in my room and they said, "We know you've been drinking. We want you to give us your alcohol." And it blew my mind because they'd never done that before. So I was like, okay. So I put both boxes up on the table and my dad looks at me and says, "You have to do now, right?" And he meant go back to AA, which I knew was bullshit because that doesn't work. I was there. They work with the idea of God, which I know there is no God. So obviously that can't work. But also on day 0, right? I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. Like I recognize like my life looks horrible right now. It looks bad, right? This isn't like I have nothing to be proud of at this point. My life looks bad at this point. And like, I don't know why. I don't know why I can't do better, right? And so on day 0, I didn't know what else to do. And I thought, all right, fine, I'm going to go to AA. It doesn't work, but I'm going to do everything they tell me to do in AA. So when I drink, it won't be my fault. When I drink, it'll be because I've done everything they've asked of me and it didn't work, right? That was my rationale because I'm a smart guy and that's how you do science, right? You repeat an experiment and get a different result. And that's what I was going to do. So I went to AA the next day I went to AA. That day I got a big book, got a sponsor. Next morning I joined the 9 a.m. home group. I'm like, here we go, let's do this. My sponsor says, "I want you to call me every day." I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I didn't call him for like 3 days because who does that, right? Who actually calls people? Then he called me on day 3 and he explained like, "Hey, look, I want you to call, start calling me every day. If you don't want to, that's okay. Some sponsors are okay with that. I'm not. So if you don't want to call, that's cool, but you might want to look for a new sponsor." And all of a sudden, like, holy crap, I'm already not doing this thing right, right? My whole rationale is I'm going to do everything they ask of me. And when it doesn't work, it's your fault. And already I'm not doing everything you asked me. So I started calling them, right? I started going to meetings every day. I started waking up early, going for a run, and then going to a meeting, then, just hanging out with people afterwards, going to the diner. I actually had a routine my first 6 months. Is wake up, go for a run, go to a meeting, go to the diner, go to the gym, go home, take a shower, take a 20-minute nap, go work 3 to 11, go home, sleep. That was my routine for the first 6 months. And as my work schedule changed, I would just kind of do the same thing, just change times, right? I'd go to at least a meeting or 2 a day. I don't think I missed a date until I had over 6 months. I started to get to know the people there. I started hearing things shared in meetings, and I was very skeptical about a lot of stuff I was hearing because in my mind there is no God, and if there is no God, then what you're saying is not real. But I was gone. I was meeting people. I was socializing, kind of plugging into the fellowship. And about a month in, I started going through the steps with my sponsor. And, I lied my way through the first 3 steps because I didn't believe any of that stuff. I didn't believe I was powerless. I didn't believe there was a higher power. I didn't believe it was going to turn out. It was dumb to me. But I just yes my way through the first 3 steps. 4th step, I'm like, this is it. This is where I get to show my sponsor that I'm different. This is where I get to show my sponsor that, like, I'm good, right? And I do my 4th step, and I do my 5th step, and he shows me how I did my 4th step wrong, right? But I do my 5th step, I'm like, holy crap, like, I'm not original at all. Because everything I have my 4th step, my sponsor has experience with. I actually do it with another sponsor. He has experience with that, right? And my 5th step convinced me, like, holy crap, if they're saying they're alcoholics and I'm like them, maybe I'm an alcoholic, whatever that word means, right? So then I started looking through the steps through that lens. Like, what if I'm an alcoholic, right? And what if I have this allergy, whatever this obsession, right? And I start looking at my story through that lens. And all of a sudden things start making sense to me. It starts making sense to me why I speed up as the night goes on, right? If I have this allergy that I need more, it makes sense to me that I never feel as drunk as I want to feel because I always want to feel more drunk, right? And this stuff all makes sense to me. And then, I go through the rest of the steps and I make amends, and that blows my mind because that's not going to work for me. That's how I get punched in the face, right? But I start making amends, and that's amazing. They're just having like those real conversations with people I care about and that care about me. That's the first, like, I want to say the first real conversation I had with my younger sister, right? Where I got to explain, like, this is what I did and this is why I did that stuff. How can I make that better, right? And I feel like the ninth step is really where I feel like I started like living the AA program just outside of the rooms, and I remember I go through, steps, 10, 11, that was a long process, by the way. It took me 7 years to start referring to my higher power as God, but I started doing that, right? But that was a process, and I got to step 12 and I celebrated a year, and I asked my sponsor, what do I do now? And he says, well, do what you've been doing, sponsor people, go to meetings, go to commitments, blah, blah. I thought, no, that sounds kind of boring, but okay. I did that. Then maybe 2 years into it, I got voted as GSR for my home group, and I started doing that kind of stuff. I started doing service outside the home group. I started going to area conventions, I started going to days of sharing. I started seeing how the service structure started to work. I got involved with the literature committee. I got involved. I was a DCM for a little bit, and that's how I eventually got involved with young people. Because for a while, I thought young people in AA, that's like JV. And you don't know me, but I'm varsity, right? I don't do that. I'm beyond that point now, right? But I remember when Jersey was hosting NARASA, the Northeast Regional AA Convention, I went there and I went to the young people's meeting. And I was going to be like, I'm going to show these guys what real service is. And they start talking about bid committees and host committees and conferences and rotating. And I'm like, holy crap, I have no idea what they're talking about. This is new. This is exciting. This is what I want to do. And I go to ESCIPA Empire State Convention, which was in Long Island in 2016, I think. And I was blown away by just how fun this was, and how people that were so knowledgeable about the steps and the traditions and the concepts, and how much more I still have left to learn. And it really just kind of humbled me, which is what I needed, because I tend to get a big head pretty quickly. So I need to be around people who know more than I do, have more experience than I do, because then it's like, okay, that's a good way for me to realize I'm not all that. I still have a lot of room left to grow. I do want to say real quick, in 2017, right, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. That was the same time that we were bidding to host ECPOD, the Eastern Area Conference. And so, I'm the service liaison at that point. I'm, reporting to area, reporting to intergroup. I'm really involved. I'm kind of I was also on host, was it that year? I don't remember. I'm just really involved. And all during that time, I started developing relationships with the committee, with people on the committee. They started developing relationships with me. And my mom, she eventually passed, July 13th, 2018. And the committee showed up. The committee sent a care package. The committee was there. AA showed up, and I got to see AA in action. I got to see the support and feel the support and feel the love. And that also kind of helps me elevate me in my understanding of my higher power and God, and the kind of principles and the spirituality of the program, right? And so I kind of see in retrospect, right, how these harder times, it's kind of like an option for me. Do I want to grow spiritually, or do I want to come sink back into my defects? And sinking back into my defects, that's like my go-to, right? That's where I feel safe. That's where I feel like, okay, I can isolate and I can do this on my own. But when I kind of make it a point to make meetings regularly, to reach out regularly, to plug into the fellowship, I get reminded the solution is here. Right, the solution is here in the rooms, in the fellowship, in the step work, in the service to others. And as long as I kind of avail myself of those things, make myself available to them, and kind of make me part of that, I tend to be okay. I do just want to, I guess, end with this. One of my favorite things that I've ever read in the program was it's on the AA.org website, Dr. Bob's farewell speech. And he talks about, how the 12 steps in the end resolve themselves into the words love and service. And I love that, because that keeps it very simple for me. Any given day, any given whatever I'm going through, I can check my own motives. Am I acting out of love? Am I acting out of service? And if I'm not, let me reflect on that, see what's going on. And if I am, I think I'll be all right. And I think that was pretty good, right? I think I'm at time. And so thank you very much for allowing me to speak, to share with you guys.